The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 3679. The Chief Clerk will report the bill.
House File number 3679, an act relating to state government requiring mandatory reports to be submitted to members of the legislative committees electronically.
I recognize a member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, if you have ever been around me, you know that I hate paper because I like to read things electronically. What this bill does is it allows for members of the legislature to receive reports electronically as opposed to having paper delivered to your hot little hand. This is a very non-controversial bill. It's a bipartisan bill, and it's great. But, Mr. Speaker, there are amendments.
There are amendments at the desk. The Chief Clerk will report the amendment.
Nash moves to amend House File number 3679. The amendment is coded A1.
I recognize a member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The A1 is an amendment that addresses some of the issues that we had at the end of the previous biennium before we started this, and there was a gap in elected caucus leadership. And what this will do is it will allow the Chief Clerk to make some of the necessary decisions to move forward to prepare us for the oncoming legislative session. This has been discussed and worked on between caucus leaders, the chair, and my co-chair and myself. I recommend a green vote.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Cleavorn.
Thank you, members. This is a good piece of legislation. I encourage you to vote yes on the amendment.
Any further discussion to the amendment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There are amendments at the desk. The Chief Clerk will report the amendment.
Engen moves to amend House File number 3679 as amended. The amendment is coded A2.
I recognize a member from Anoka, Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. You know, this amendment is pretty simple, and while it might be a little odd that it is attached to this bill, I think that it's something that we need to get done for the integrity of this institution, for the trust of Minnesota taxpayers, and because it's the right thing to do. And while I appreciate flow charts being handed out and distributed on the floor that help legislators like myself understand what is and what isn't in good standing when it comes to potential conflicts of interest, I think we need a statute that clearly defines what is and what isn't acceptable behavior when it comes to self-serving governance. Tax dollars aren't our ATM. They're not our supplemental salary. They're not a bonus or a potential for an increase to our retirement income. But right now, we can use our positions to pass bills that appropriate tax dollars to organizations that then employ or contract with us outside of this place. That is wrong. And there is a direct correlation between the $2.2 billion in nonprofit spending that took place last biennium and the number of folks who are engaged in this. We need to stop it. The public is wide awake to the niche nonprofit industry that is only applicable or eligible to be participated in by the politically well-connected. Their eyes are wide open to it. They see the fraud, they see the self-serving governance, and they see the ties to legislators and politicians. This amendment would end that practice and draw a clear line in the sand so that it doesn't happen again. I urge your guys' support. Thank you.
I recognize a member from Hennepin, Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, so I don't forget, I'd like a roll call.
Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Kraft.
So, Representative Engen, I am very sad that you're bringing this amendment to this excellent bipartisan bill. And I wish Representative Nash would have discouraged it. But you mentioned up front that it may seem strange to put that on this bill. It does seem strange that this bill is about not delivering paper to us, efficiency. Will the representative yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Kraft.
So, Representative Engen, why the epiphany now on this bill? Why bringing it here? Why not, if this is something that you're concerned about, why not have written a bill, say, 2 or 3 months ago? What is it that right now Is there something, is this a distraction? Like what is causing this to happen right now?
Representative Ingen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Kraft. This was actually something that I put into a bill last year and had prepared as an amendment on the floor to the state government omnibus bill before withdrawing it due to agreement procedures. So I think that because this is a state government bill, because it fits neatly into this section of statute, and because it's well beyond the time that this should have been done, I decided to go for it now. Not a distraction, just something that we should all, in a bipartisan fashion, say it needs to stop now.
Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will Representative Engen continue to yield?
He'll continue to yield. Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Representative Engen, why is it so important that it's an organization that is a named recipient versus any organization that receives some benefit from actions that we take?
Representative Ingen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you would have filed that amendment to the amendment, Representative Kraft, I would have happily taken it. I think that this is a great first step in demonstrating that there is an inherent conflict when a legislatively named direct appropriation then employs or contracts with a legislator. I can name off probably 100+ examples of that, but one that comes to mind is iMatter, which is now Climate Generation, which receives $491,000 from the Minnesota State Climate Action Framework. I don't know if that's something that you might be aware of.
Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am aware of the state's climate action framework. Thank you, Representative Engen. It's a good document. You know, but what you've just said, you'd be willing to accept this, I think is showing that this is just not a serious, well thought out piece of work in something that is a quite serious issue. Why is a named organization any worse than, say, working for a data center company that receives tens of millions of dollars worth of tax breaks from the state? Or what about any business that receives a tax break from the state of Minnesota? What about a general contractor that is being used by a city that gets a significant bonding bill? What about a farmer that benefits from a low-interest loan program or a grant program that we put in place? What about working for a law firm that is then hired by the House or a caucus? What? You know, we are a part-time legislature. If we want to talk, I could have brought a secondary amendment that said no one can do work outside of the legislature. But that doesn't make sense. You talk about clearly defines. There's no definition of this of a non-government organization. And then you said you'd be willing to expand this to any other organization. And I just went through a whole set of things that shows that this is just not serious. We already have conflict of interest rules. I think conflict of interest is a serious issue. But this is not a serious amendment on a serious issue. So members, vote no on something that, I don't know about but that clearly shouldn't be in this bill. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I recognize the member from Wright, Representative Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, before I joined this body, I remember having this conversation with a former member of this House, Jeremy Munson, and he was talking about his experience as a, I guess landlord is a faux pas term nowadays, but a property owner, right, who works in the housing space. And it was on this topic of conflict of interest, and he was explaining how, as a member of the legislature, he can vote on bills that have an impact on housing despite the fact that he has a financial interest in housing because the bill doesn't specifically help him as a person. It applies to a class of people. It applies to all people who work in that space, all people who work in that industry. It has a uniform and general purpose. And that's why, for instance, the lawyers in the room can work on the law in spite of the fact that they turn around and vote on that very law that they end up practicing in. It's why we can have farmers who vote on farm bills and teachers who vote on education policy. Because when the policy applies to everyone, it's not a special benefit to the legislator. In the case of the Engen Amendment, and the reason why I think, and you could ask the author again, why it specifically says named recipient of state funding is exactly because of what Representative Engen said. We're talking about direct appropriations. And when you're getting a direct appropriation and you're handing that over to an organization, and then that organization turns around and employs you, that's special. It's really special. That's why it's categorically different than the broader categories that you're discussing. That's why the amendment to the amendment that has been pulled would have been a categorically different thing that, in my reading, absolutely would have prevented any of us from working for anywhere other than the legislature. And it would have circumvented that principle that Munson articulated long before I got to this body. So this amendment, it is strange in terms of topical germaneness to the underlying bill, but by the standard that has been set in this body, where we judge germaneness not by whether or not it's relevant to the topic at hand, but whether or not it's fitting in the same chapter of law, underneath the same general jurisdiction of a committee, it's most certainly germane, probably indicated by the fact that no point of order was raised trying to say that it wasn't. So I would say just because there's a little bit of a topical confusion here, that's no reason to vote no on this amendment. Just because it specifically targets special direct appropriations that end up benefiting legislators personally and directly and singularly, that doesn't mean that we should say no to it. And it is in no way the same as saying that somebody who is the principal of a school can't vote on an education bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any further discussion to the amendment? I recognize a member from Morrison, Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just highlight for the members that in light of ethics complaints, in light of conflicts of interest, I just want to, point out for the record as we approach a vote on this matter on the A2 amendment that every member considers whether or not they are receiving compensation from a named beneficiary of state dollars. So please keep that in mind, members. I know there might be about 10 or so members at least that that might fall under that, guise, and please keep that in mind as we approach a vote on this matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any further discussion? I recognize a member from Ramsey, Representative Curran.
Thank you so much, Speaker, and thank you, Representative Schultz. I do think it's important that everyone thinks about who benefits when we take important votes here in the legislature. And I would just say that I also happen to know that there are a number of folks in the room who benefited from PPP loans, maybe that weren't, that didn't have to pay back, or perhaps a law firm that taxpayers pay for that might be doing free treasury work for somebody running for a campaign. So I think just when we're talking about fairness and where money goes, taxpayers also expect that we're good stewards of their dollars. And that does count for all of us. So I'm not exactly sure what Representative Schultz, what that point was, but I do think that there is a greater point here that taxpayers have felt hoodwinked by some of the offers on this House floor as well. And I would remind the body it wasn't too long ago that the House was discussing paying a certain law firm that members work for as well. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I recognize the author of the amendment, the member from Anoka, Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the discussion. I hope that it cuts both ways. I hope that this is equally applied, no matter the partisan makeup of whoever is engaged in it. But to Representative Kraft's point that this is unserious, it's been serious enough to be in the Star Tribune. It's been serious enough that people who have engaged in it have had to rescind their employment.
State your point of order.
Mr. Speaker, Mason's 124 requires that personalities are not permitted in debates. please keep the topic to.
Advice, Mr. Speaker.
State your advice.
My advice to that particular point of order would be that no personality was invoked. We made reference, or Representative Ingen made reference to mainstream media reporting. If we can't make reference to mainstream media reporting, not sure what we're doing here.
I'll remind the body we're on the A2 amendment. Representative Ingen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll return to holding it up. So you guys got this passed out. It's on your desk. There are members who've had to rescind opportunities that were specifically carved out and created potentially for that member. There are data requests that have been submitted and follow-up from those requests that have been answered that demonstrate potentially $50,000 in payment that was given to a sitting legislator. It was made for them.
Point of order. Masons, 124. Personalities. We're talking about a specific policy, not particular people.
I haven't mentioned the
Ingen, you have
name.
the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll just resume. I'll hold it up again. There's been accounts of this happening, several. I can bring up others. I can print them off and have those distributed as well, but we all know what we're talking about. This place is not made to benefit us. It is made to benefit those that we serve, that we work for, the voters, the taxpayers. They see and they get served no interest when we appropriate dollars to organizations that we ourselves work for outside of this body. This is pretty clear, cut and dry, you guys. And a no vote on this means maintaining institutional rot. It means maintaining the status quo, conflicts of interest that we've all seen in this place. It doesn't matter the partisan makeup. Set that aside and do it because it's right. Set that aside and do it because you're here for your voters, not for ourselves. Thank you.
There being no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. The clerk will call the names of the members voting remotely.
Bliss.
Bliss, aye.
Bliss votes aye. Hussein.
Hussein, no.
Hussein votes no. Momani Hiltsley.
Momani Helsley, no.
Momani Hiltsley votes no. Perez Vega. Zhang.
Xiong, no.
Did you hear it?
Zhang.
Xiong, no.
Zhang votes no. Perez Vega.
Thank you.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 66 yeas and 66 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The chief clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 3679, as amended.
Third reading. Discussion. I recognize a member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill, as amended, does a lot of really good things. It saves paper, so unless you live in paper-producing area, you may not love it 100%, but it's a really good bill as amended, and I urge your green vote.
Any further discussion on the bill? I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Hennepin, Representative Cleaborn.
Thank you, Co-Chair Nash, for bringing the bill. I know you were last, but I didn't get to say thank you. So thank you for bringing the bill forward, and I encourage our members to vote green.
I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we did this, but good bill, vote green.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the names of the members voting remotely.
Bliss.
Bliss, aye.
Bliss votes aye. Hussein.
Hussein, aye.
Hussein votes aye. Momani Hilsley.
Mamani Hiltsley, aye.
Momani Hilsley votes aye. Pettis Vega. Zhang.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 132 yeas and 0 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to.